As the investigation into President Biden's handling of these confidential documents continue, the White House said yesterday it does not keep visitor logs for the president's personal residence in Delaware. That seems rather odd to me in itself. But on top of the obvious there, we all know now that there's a cache of confidential documents that's been discovered. And the Secret Service was not even tracking visitors? Well, an obvious question, did this pose a threat to our national security? Where are these investigations going to go from here? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is U.S. Representative Ronny Jackson. He was recently appointed to the House Committee on Agriculture for this 118th Congress. He represents the 13th District of Texas. Congressman Jackson, great to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you, Jody. I appreciate it. And we miss you in the 118th.
Well, thank you much. Listen, first of all, congratulations on your appointment to the Ag Committee. I know that's a big deal for you and your district there in Texas, so congratulations.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I have the #1 ag district in the state of Texas, #5 in the country, and there's just me and one other Texas member on ag now. So I think it's going to be a pretty pivotal position. I'm really looking forward to getting to work, and we got the Farm Bill coming up this year, so should be able to get a lot of good stuff done.
Outstanding. Well, we're proud of you for that. But listen, you were a naval officer, and you've served on the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. When we were talking about these classified documents, how does your background affect your views on these classified documents and the response so far from the president's handling of all this?
Well, I think I just see it probably as just as ridiculous, if not more ridiculous, than your typical, citizen because of my background. Because I was, if you remember, Jody, I was at the White House for 15 years, well, almost 15 years. I was a physician for Bush, Obama, and Trump. So I was there for quite a long time. So I know how this whole process works. And, for President Biden to, imply that it was okay that he had the documents or it wasn't a big deal because they were locked up in his garage, that's ridiculous. It doesn't matter where those documents are. It doesn't matter if he had a skiff built at his home. He was not authorized to have those documents when he had them as a former vice president. And, people talk all the time about, you mentioned the visitor's log and whatnot. And I think that's a little bit ridiculous, too, that there's not someone tracking that. And I'm sure the Secret Service is vetting people that are coming in now. But you have to remember that he's been gone for 6 years. And if a vice president only gets Secret Service protection for 6 months after they leave office. So 6 months after he left office, he didn't have any Secret Service protection, and he didn't pick it up again probably until about 18 months before he was elected. So there's a 2-year period in there where he had no Secret Service protection, and that was just Joe Citizen's house. And it was actually a house that Hunter Biden had listed as his primary residence. So who knows who's had access to these documents? Who knows if Hunter and some of Hunter's friends have had access to it? And we know, some of the people he hangs out with are probably not the most trustworthy people in the world. And then who knows if some of the people that have been employing him, that have been giving him these big paychecks over the last few years, that are adversaries of ours, Ukraine and China and Russia, if they've had access to these documents. So I'm very concerned about what's going on in the Biden in this issue with Biden and the classified documents.
Well, I tell you, Congressman, those are some excellent points that you bring up and questions, frankly, that demand an answer. Are you confident that this new Republican-led Congress is going to do the necessary investigation to get to the bottom of this?
I really am, Jody. I think that Kevin McCarthy, who's our new speaker now, has been talking about this for 2 years. He was on the campaign trail a lot, as was I, campaigning for other candidates, and I heard him speak numerous times. And he mentioned frequently, pretty much every time he spoke, that we were going to have oversight and we were going to have some hearings, and we were going to get to the bottom of a lot of these issues, the origins of COVID, and Anthony Fauci and the NIH, and then now the issue with the Biden family and the Hunter Biden and the potential influences there. So I really believe that he'll do this. And we have a small majority. We have a 5-seat majority right now. So I think Speaker McCarthy's going to have his feet held to the fire on this, and I think that he's going to be happy to follow through on his commitment to make this happen.
Well, there will be a lot of people who are happy, likewise, to see it come about. I'm encouraged to hear. Speaking of investigations, if we can shift gears just a little bit, With this Republican-controlled House now, they have now commissioned a special investigative panel focused on the coronavirus pandemic. And as you referenced, and as we all know, you are a leading doctor. I'm really curious about your thoughts on all of this.
Well, I'm excited to look into that as well, because, this was an absolute disaster for our country. It was a disaster for our children. It was a disaster for our economy. The livelihoods of many people were destroyed. For 2 years, we lived under this, authoritarian rule that was put in place with the mask mandates and the lockdown, so on and so forth. So we can never let this happen again. We need to find out exactly what the truth was and what led us to that point, because I think there was a lot of misinformation, some lies and some dishonesty that brought us there. And so we're going to look into that. And I think that Dr. Fauci is at the root of a lot of that. And I think that he was driven by, a variety of interests, a lot of which weren't the best interests of the American people. I think that he's destroyed the American people's faith in our public health system here in the United States, and we need to regain that. And so we need to look into what goes on at NIH as well. There's a lot of corruption there. I think there's a lot of kickbacks, a lot of people that are getting these royalties from research that they're working on, research that they're funding and promoting and propping up, and then lining their pockets with some of the revenue from this. And that's really just a horrible way for us to approach public health and some of the most cutting edge research in our nation.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I was just made aware of that just in some research and so forth recently. I have a clip here that actually deals with those royalties that you're talking about. Look at this clip, and I would like to get your reaction in the last couple of minutes we have.
We now know, coming back through the other door, over the course of the past 12 years has been $1.4 billion worth of these hidden secret third-party royalties that enrich the agency, its leadership, and 2,400 of its scientists. Incredibly, although NIH produced 3,000 pages of information, they redacted key information that we need to follow the money. We still can't follow the money.
Stunning. That was Adam Andrzejewski. He's a CEO of the government watchdog group Open the Books. But look, we've only got about 60 seconds left here. But is this something that's going to be looked into?
Absolutely. Anthony Fauci needs to explain where his personal wealth came from. And I think that a lot of it's going to be tied to that clip you just played, because, I was on active duty in the Navy for 25 years. I was not able to accumulate any type of wealth like that, and I, as a public servant on a government paycheck for all those years, I don't know how Anthony Fauci could be worth millions and millions and millions of dollars right now. He's insanely wealthy, and I'd like to know where all that money came from. So we are going to find out about that. Granted, he was the highest paid employee in the federal government, but still, there's no way he should have amassed that kind of wealth. But something's going on, and we will figure it out.
Well, listen, Congressman Jackson, I can't thank you enough for your incredible leadership on so many fronts. We are deeply grateful to you on all this, and thank you so much for joining us this evening on Washington Watch.
Thank you, Jody. I appreciate you having me.